What's going on, my fellow kinolords? Got a really special video tonight because obviously it is finally about that time for me to share my top favorite films of the year. This year I'm only going to be doing a top 10. Usually I do a top 15 or top 20, but I feel like condensing it may make for a more palatable experience. I also really wanted to challenge myself and force myself into seeing which films do I actually admire and appreciate over others, and I feel like forcing myself to condense a top 10 really helps put things into perspective like that. And look, it's been a really great year for film overall. We got to see a lot of films from notable and legendary filmmakers this year, and I really enjoyed what this year had to offer, or last year I should say, 2023. I will say I think I've seen better years, but maybe it's a little bit unfair to say just because it's hard not to compare it to some of the previous years like 2019 and 2014, which I think are just insane years for filmmaking in my opinion. Also, I apologize for taking a while to get this video out there. It is only because I was patiently waiting for the Zone of Interest to get released near me. So you can honestly thank A24's distribution and release team when it comes to how they're exclusively releasing this into theaters. But anyways, with all that being said, let's just go ahead and dive into our honorable mentions. And I have quite a bit because I'm only doing a top 10. So let's start with May December. That's a film I haven't really talked about at all on this channel yet. A lot of people really, really love that film. And I do get it. I also think that it is a great movie. Unfortunately, the musical score just dragged my experience down with that film. I understand that some people really love the score. I love the score separate from the film. But it has this very intentional soap opera-y, corny type music that, I don't know, considering the serious subject matter that I didn't find humorous for the most part, it just felt really jarring and out of place. And I don't know, maybe I'm dumb and I'm missing the point, but it just really didn't work for me overall. But the film itself overall is still a pretty damn good movie. Dream Scenario with my man Nick Cage. Really great movie. Unfortunately didn't make the list. Showing Up is an interesting film that I watched recently that is written and directed by Kelly Reichardt. And I really, really love Reichardt's filmmaking. I've seen a good handful of her films, like Wendy and Lucy and like Certain Women, that I just love dearly. And there's just something about her subtlety and her craft that I just think is really moving and really powerful. And that goes to show with Showing Up. A really quiet and peaceful and subtle film. And it just feels like a very human film, as basically every Kelly Reichardt film does. And again, just very down to earth. And I feel like does have a number of things to say about our relationship with art and art's relationship to reality around it. And yeah, so I mean, I definitely recommend Showing Up. Definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but if you just want a simple, quiet, and subtle film that just explores the life of an everyday struggling artist, I think Showing Up is your cup of tea. Thanksgiving, badass slasher film. I did not expect to enjoy Thanksgiving as much as I did, but Thanksgiving was, again, just an absolute blast. Probably some of the most fun I had in the theater this entire year. Definitely my favorite Eli Roth film. I just think he just knew exactly what he wanted to do, which was pay an amazing homage to the slasher genre, but at the same time, having his own quirky and Boston-level comedy in it that just works really well. I just really, really liked Thanksgiving. Really excited to watch that film again. Infinity Pool, Brandon Cronenberg film that I really dug a lot. One of the earlier films that I watched in the year. Again, a very fucking bonkers movie, as every Cronenberg, both David Cronenberg and Brandon Cronenberg films tend to be. And yeah, just really memorable and bizarre as hell. Again, not a film that's going to be for everybody. But again, I just think it's very effective and very unique when it comes to horror and sci-fi horror and just art house filmmaking in general. All right, next honorable mention, we got Barbie. Film that I really did not expect to like as much as I did, but Barbie is a whole lot of fun. And, again, that's a film that I feel like some people are mixed on. But I really enjoyed my experience watching that film. I really did. There was just a lot to have fun with. It's a really referential movie, like tons of film references, tons of references to pop culture, tons of references to nostalgia culture, and there's just a lot of, and then there's also just original, clever comedy in it that I just found humorous and goofy as hell. And I don't know, I just really like that movie. Like, I just think it's a whole lot of fun. I'm not even a fan of musicals, but some really fun musical numbers that I really dug. And overall, again, just a really fun movie that I think is written and directed really well acted. Margot Robbie and obviously Ryan Gosling fucking kills it. Yeah. So moving on to the next honorable mention, Godzilla Minus One, a film that I just saw out of nowhere, like a film that I just decided out of whim to go watch and review, and I'm really glad I did. That movie was really, really fun and had a lot of heart poured into it. And again, in my review for it, I mentioned like I'm not the biggest Godzilla fan. I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to Godzilla films and the history of Godzilla films and its place in film history and all that. Which was one of my reservations in seeing it. But I'm glad I did, because this film, you could tell, like, with its insanely low budget, which I believe was like 10 million, 15 million, something like that. I have no idea how they were able to pull off action sequences, all those action sequences, all of that sheer levels of destruction. There's just so much going on in this film that you would think would take at least like $100 million budget, but they somehow pull it off with it. When it comes to blockbuster filmmaking and like big action filmmaking, it's basically a micro budget within that scale. Next, we got Skinamarink, a film that again I saw way early I saw like in January 5th or something like that. I saw really, really early in the year 2023, and that's a really effectively frightening film. Again, people might not be everybody's cup of tea because it's really experimental and you got to be really patient with it. Just understand you're probably not going to understand anything. It's more about the sensations and it's more about the suspense and just the experience overall than it is, piecing together like a cohesive narrative. But it's very effective. And I love a film that keeps me on my toes and keeps me on the edge of my seat. And Skinamarink definitely achieved that. And also the Iron Claw. The Iron Claw barely did not make this list. Again, if I had made a top 15, it definitely would have been in there. But Iron Claw, amazing film. Really, really dug the Iron Claw. A film that I just watched kind of just because it's an A24 distribution and was like, fuck it, let's just watch it. Knew nothing about the actual true story this is based off of. And I just think this film delivers some incredibly emotionally important stuff that revolves around family life and how, again, the way you raise your children can deeply impact them in ways that is completely unfair to them. And just a really, really great film. Like, obviously, there's wrestling elements too, but this is a film that kind of uses wrestling as a way to tell a more deeper and important story. And I think that's it, actually. All right, that's it. I mean, yeah, Asteroid City was good. The Holdovers was a good movie. Bottoms, really funny movie. Priscilla, yeah. So that's all I'll say. Now it's time to move on to my top 10. So we're gonna start off with number 10, which is Smoking Causes Coughing, which is written and directed by Quentin Dupieux. So Smoking Causes Coughing, I have to give credit to Mitchie in my Discord. He's been a long time supporter of my channel, really long active member in the Discord, been there for a long time, and he was really pushing this film on me. He is a huge Quentin Dupieux fan, and I gotta thank him for pushing this film in my direction and really encouraging me to watch it, because not only did I really, really enjoy this film, but thanks to Mitchie, I'm basically now a huge Quentin Dupieux fan. The last Quentin Dupieux film I saw before Smoking Causes Coughing was a film called Reality. And that film is also just absolutely awesome. Definitely recommend that film and just Depues films in general. I haven't even seen that much of them, but I'm dying to see more because, again, especially with Smoking Causes Coughing, he has this very surreal comedic quirk about not only his filmmaking style in terms of craft, but also just in terms of his writing. Pretty much every film that I've seen from him, he just has this apparent reoccurring quirk to it that I just think works really well for me. It reminds me so much of like shorts and comedies and just like TV series that I would see on late night Adult Swim that just feel really like otherworldly and trippy, but obviously incredibly humorous and clever. And again, that's one of the huge reasons why not only do I love Quentin Dupieux as a filmmaker, but why I really loved Smoking Causes Coughing. It's basically, really, it's a superhero movie. Or you can call it a Power Rangers-esque movie. I thought more of Power Rangers than I did of superheroes when watching this. But it's a very funny, adult, down-to-earth kind of take on the kind of Power Rangers type of genre. And it's just so funny and so entertaining and so engaging. And again, it's a very adult and at times satirical and at times just dumb and trippy. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And this is how daring Quentin Dupieux is as a filmmaker. He basically squeezes in like 3 short films into this. Like you have the baseline foundation, the base narrative and concept of what this movie is, which is again that kind of Power Ranger superhero thing. And then there are just segments where he finds an excuse to showcase completely separate short film ideas that have basically nothing to do with the narrative itself. And yet, like, I loved every second of it. Again, that's not gonna probably play well with everybody. But for me, it was just like, I didn't care because he's that kind of filmmaker and clearly it's that kind of film. And Quentin Dupieux didn't give a shit. And luckily for me, I also didn't give a shit. It was fun watching these shorts because they also have such bizarre concepts, like darkly bizarre concepts that I found comedically effective and just creatively compelling. That again remind me so much of just like that late night Adult Swim humor that I just really couldn't get enough of. One in this film is involving this like helmet thing. I won't go any further than that, but all I gotta do is say helmet and everybody who has seen it knows what I'm talking about. Loved that short. It's really dark and hilarious and just a whole lot of fun. And then another one involving a wood chipper. Again, dark and hilarious and just fun. So yeah, Smoke Causes Coughing. Just a fucking bizarre, funny and clever and also really stupid movie that I really, really enjoyed. I think it's on Hulu. So at least when I watched it, it was on Hulu. So I definitely recommend for people to watch it if you haven't. I think it kind of flew under the radar kind of for obvious reasons. I think a lot of his films do because they're not for everybody, obviously. But I really dug it, and I really want everybody out there watching this video, if you haven't seen it, to just at least give it a shot. I think it's at least worth that. But yeah, that's all I'll say about it. Really, really love Smoking Causes Coughing. I didn't do a formal review on it, so I'll rate it. I'll give it a solid, a strong 8 out of 10. Just really, really entertaining and interesting stuff. So at number 9, we have Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron. This is a film that the more I think about it, the more I really like it. When I walked out of the theater, first of all, I watched it in IMAX, which was such a treat. I think that's the only time I've ever seen an animated film in IMAX, and I feel so grateful. Even better that it's a Miyazaki film, the most legendary animation director that's ever lived. And just the more I think about, like when I first walked out of it, I really liked it, obviously. I have a whole review on it, a whole separate review. If you want to check that out, please do. For a lot of these films, I do. But I didn't know if I really loved it as much as other Miyazaki films. But the more I think about it, I do think that it's perfectly up there with like a lot of the Miyazaki films that I highly love. Yeah, it's just such an imaginative and endearing and thought-provoking experience. The world building here is Miyazaki back at it again at its finest. Really interesting character traits, really interesting character designs. Thematically, it's interesting too because it's not the most clear-cut, streamlined themes when it comes to its characters and just overall central themes. So it really does get you to think a lot about what it was trying to express in terms of its meanings. Yeah, I just really, really like this film. I think it's a really imaginative experience. You do, at least for me, I felt transported into a totally different world when watching it. And there's a few sequences in this film that I just found so cinematically enriching. There's one scene involving this character in what they call the delivery room in the context of this film, and there's curtains and the way they close, like just the presentation of that entire sequence, I was blown away by. Like absolutely blown away. I just think it's presented and directed really well and beautifully captured. And there's a handful of sequences that are like that really made me, again, like upon like after further reflection, just really made me admire this film on a whole other level. So yeah, Boy and the Heron, and that's why it's number 9 on my list. So number 8, we have Oppenheimer, which is directed by Christopher Nolan. Yeah, Oppenheimer, also saw this in IMAX, and I'm really glad that I did. I wish I could have watched it in IMAX 70mm. I heard that I was getting re-released in IMAX 70mm, but after I looked it up, it wasn't coming to Georgia, so I think I just fucking missed that opportunity. Hopefully one day in the future, they'll release it in my state, and I'll finally get to watch it in that setting and in that format. But yeah, Oppenheimer, definitely one of my favorite Nolan films. One of the most dialed back Nolan films as well. I mean, he still has those Nolan tendencies that people really like about him and that I really like about him, which is the fact that he has this very grandiose narrative build-up, especially when it comes to these climactic moments in the third act that feel still in a weird way mind-bending. Again, it's a very down-to-earth film, especially compared to a lot of Nolan films, but Nolan is still able to deliver, a very warped and interesting way of presenting revelations in this film that I was satisfied with and was really impressed by. He also, again, there's a few sequences in this film, beyond the amazing atomic bomb sequence, which was just fucking mind-blowing to see, especially in IMAX. Just the way that he uses sound design and the way that he's able to, direct and edit together this entire sequence in a way that flows and feels massively suspenseful. Beyond that sequence, we have sequences like the one where Cillian Murphy is given his speech after they drop the atomic bomb on Japan. That scene where he's given that speech is just, it's psychologically unsettling and impactful because of the way that Nolan is able to present the emotions and the psychological state through creative aesthetic use. Again, through creative use of sound design, through the creative use of editing, and just the way that the camera moves throughout the scene and slow motion. It's just really, really amazing stuff. That scene has always stuck out to me, and it's still probably one of my favorite scenes in the film. I only got to see it once, and I really am dying to see it again. I'm going to be buying the 4K soon and watching it on my TV with my soundbar. Really excited for that. But yeah, Oppenheimer, overall really great film, and that's why it's number 8 on my list. So at number 7, we have The Zone of Interest, which is directed by Jonathan Glazer. So I literally just put out my review for The Zone of Interest yesterday, so I'm not going to go on too long about this film. Please go out and watch that review. It would really mean a lot to me. I feel like I do go pretty in-depth with how I really feel about that film in that review. But yeah, The Zone of Interest is one of the most hauntingly subtle films I've ever seen in my entire life. It's an incredibly minimal film that has this really intense creative reliance on sound design that really makes the film. Like, the sound design is what makes this film so special. Because of Glazer's stylistic use of it. It crafts such a harrowing and haunting experience in the most simple and subtle way I can imagine. It's a really simple film. It relies a lot, not only on the sound design, but just on its central concept of this Nazi family living in their dream home, literally 2 inches away from Auschwitz, which is, you have literally a family living their best life 2 inches away from countless men, women, and children experiencing hell on earth and the worst imaginable life experience ever. Again, it's a very jarring experience, and it's not even the most easiest watch because of that. I mean, the movie's PG-13, so again, it doesn't show anything visually, really anything horrific, but it's through the use of off-screen space because of that sound design, and because of some of the cinematic framing that we get, that it just really packs a punch because of its creative, subtle craft. I won't say much more about it because, again, I just went massively into detail in my Zone of Interest review that I put out yesterday. But yeah, there's a lot about this film to love, and definitely want to see it again sometime soon. So, yeah, Zone of Interest, a great film, and that is why it is number 7 on my list. So at number 6, we have Poor Things, which is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. So Poor Things was obviously a film that I was going to be looking forward to, because Yorgos Lanthimos is a film that I've come to know, honestly, over the course of the last 6 or 7 years. This is a guy that just has, almost kind of like Quentin Dupieux, as I was putting it earlier, has a very quirky and weird style to his films. And a lot of them come off really humorous, with the exception of Dogtooth. Dogtooth, by the way, if you haven't seen that, please watch it, but proceed with caution. Definitely, I mean, it's a weird movie, but it's a lot harder of a watch. It is the most boundary-pushing Yorgos Lanthimos film that I've ever seen. But anyway, yeah, Poor Things, again, has that beautifully quirky, humorous style that we all love from the guy. And it just makes for such an entertaining and funny and engaging experience. And yes, Lanthimos' craft is a huge part as to why that is the case. But the performances for this film also really fantastic. Emma Stone, my favorite performance from her, for sure. I mean, she's fantastic in The Favorite, another Yorgos Lanthimos film. But I think this is my favorite performance from her that she's ever been. Like, she is incredible in this film. Really weird kind of character to portray. And I think that she knocks it out of the park. I think this film and this role in particular was really pushing the boundaries of her acting talent. And I think she knew that. And she knew that was going to be challenging. And I think that she did an excellent job. She definitely conquered the challenge. And she just did an excellent job. But also, Mark Ruffalo in this film, he's probably my favorite character in this movie. Like, as great as Emma Stone is, Mark Ruffalo also gives a performance from a character that I've never seen him portray. He's just a really weird and pathetic type of character that, again, has his own quirk to him, that it's just like, it's constantly entertaining and constantly amusing. Yeah, like, Mark Ruffalo in this film is awesome. I think this is probably my favorite role from him as well. Really kills it in this film. And yeah, I mean, Willem Dafoe, also great, but that just goes without saying. But yeah, Poor Things, again, really, I mean, it's an aesthetically pleasing film in the weirdest kind of way, because it has such, like, artificially vibrant colors throughout the experience, but yet it somehow meshes really well with this kind of bizarre atmosphere and landscape and just humor that it has. It just somehow works with it. But yeah, again, I have a whole review on this as well. Please check that out if you can. But yeah, I really enjoy myself. I watched Poor Things twice and really dug it both times. Really, really dug it. This is a film I see myself coming back to and watching quite often. It's not my favorite Lanthimos film, Um, Honestly, when comparing it to films like The Favorite and The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacred Deer and even Dogtooth, like it actually might be ranked lower than those because I mean it's not really any fault of Poor Things. I just love his other films so much that I don't know if I could rank Poor Things higher than them. But honestly, I would have to give all of his films a rewatch before I say anything too concrete on that. But yeah, Poor Things, really great film. That's why it's number 6 on my list. Fuck. So at number 5, we have Hundreds of Beavers, which is directed by Mike Cheslick. So Hundreds of Beavers is a film that I'm actually really excited to talk about because I feel like there's probably a good number of you out there who have never heard of this film. So I'm really glad to have somewhat of a platform to give this film some exposure because this film is an absolute blast from start to finish. This is a piece of comedy filmmaking, and it sucks because I don't want to necessarily give it shtick away, but I kind of have to in order to express why this film is so great. So I'll just go ahead and say it. This film is essentially, I don't want to say it's a silent comedy because there is sound design and everything like that, but I'll just say it's a film without dialogue. It's a comedy film without dialogue that is, in a way, paying homage to the silent film era. Obviously, films like the Charlie Chaplin films that rely so much on slapsticky type comedy, and it somehow manages to feel so inventive and creative and refreshing and constantly entertaining throughout the entire experience. And again, it's not necessarily a short movie. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes. I could be mistaken, but that's what I remember. And it somehow finds ways to constantly keep you entertained with just, slapsticky type of comedic setups. Just throw so many different jokes at you constantly. Like, almost every scene contains like 3 or 4 different jokes. So, not every single one is going to have you gut busting with laughter, but at the very least is keeping you amused and charmed by the experience. And you could just tell, like, this is an indie film, so it's basically low budget, and you could just tell that they poured their heart and soul into every frame of this film and into every single way it could have possibly been shot. They used they executed the best possible way it could have been shot and captured. Because there's sequences in this film where you can tell, like, damn, they really spent time thinking about the cinematography and the direction of this sequence and how things were going to be presented. It's like, yeah, it's low budget, but you don't feel like they took any shortcuts in its presentation. So, yeah, this film, again, it's constantly funny, constantly amusing, constantly entertaining, and I just think that everybody that watches this film is at the very least not going to regret it and have a decent time with it. There's also some really satisfying homages to RPG style of gaming. Obviously for me, I played a lot of Legend of Zelda games growing up and still play the new Zelda games. I'm about to finish Tears of the Kingdom. I've literally milked the last leg of the game for 4 months now because I just don't want it to end. In this film, there's a little store where he has to trade in certain things in order to, get objects that'll further him into his adventure and into his quest. And just the use of music and the character interactions, like, again, it's very Zelda-esque. At least it reminded me of Zelda, but it's probably, again, overall just paying homage to RPG style of gaming. But yeah, it's just so much fun. This film is packed with so much shit, and I just think people are going to really have a great time with it. So yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, can't wait to watch this film again. It's an absolute blast, and that's why it's number 5 on my list. So number 4, we have Killers of the Flower Moon, which is directed by the legendary one and only Martin Scorsese. Killers of the Flower Moon, again, another film that I talked extensively about in my review. Probably won't go on too long talking about it. But Martin Scorsese, again, in his 80s, is somehow making important cinema that everybody needs to see, still finding inventive ways to reveal and present films. And I mean that especially in reference to how this film chooses to end. But man, this guy, like Scorsese, he doesn't quit. And it'd be one thing if, his films were getting lesser in quality as he aged, but that is not the case at all. At the very least, he has maintained the same level of quality throughout his entire career. And Killers of the Flower Moon is just a perfect example of somebody who is still obviously so passionate about the art form of filmmaking and is able to make something that is, again, very important. This film obviously tackles the absolute atrocities that happened to the Osage tribe, based on an absolute true story, and showcases things that are vitally important, vitally human, vitally American, and it's just a film that everybody needs to watch. Yes, it's a whopping 3 hours and 20 minutes long, so when you go into it, just know that and kind of prepare yourself. But it's a film that I personally really, really dug. This film impressed me in so many ways. Great performances all around. Lily Gladstone is fantastic. Hope she gets nominated I'm sure she'll get nominated for an Oscar, but who knows? I mean, I will be excited if she won, because I do think that she deserves it. Everybody in this film. Leo is obviously great. Robert De Niro is menacing in the most subtle way I've ever seen a villain be. And yeah, this is a film, again, I don't want to go too long about it, but it's a film that I just think has a lot of incredibly impressive things about it. And I've seen twice already, actually, and I definitely plan on watching it again sometime soon. So yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, love it. That's why it's number 4 on my list. So number 3, we have Godland, which is directed by Hilner Palmason. Definitely not how you pronounce it. But I believe this is a Swedish film. Either Swedish or Danish, but I believe it's Swedish. And this film's fucking incredible. It's definitely a subtle and slow burn type of film, but man, I really do think it delivers in every way possible. Loved the character writing, loved the performances, loved its thematic conveyances about the relationship between religion and racism and conquest and sexuality and the restrictions of sexuality and sexual repression, and just it's been a while since I've seen it. I think I watched this, I believe, in March of 2023, so it's been a good while. So I definitely need to give it a rewatch. But man, has it really stuck with me. It's an incredibly memorable film, and I just remember walking out of the theater feeling very impacted and very satisfied with the experience that this film gave me. It feels also delicate, also purposeful, and again, overall, just kind of like The Zone of Interest, is one of the most subtle films that I've seen all year, and yet, like, with the less is more approach, just is able to pack a bigger punch if it wasn't as subtle. So, and it really actually does have an interesting story to tell. It has a lot to say as well, and overall, like, in every phase of filmmaking, I just found it incredibly satisfying. Yeah, Godland is amazing. Super impressive piece of filmmaking. Please seek this film out if you haven't seen it yet. It's on Criterion, it's on the Janus collection, the Janus Contemporary Selects, whatever it's called, I don't know. But you can buy it during the Criterion sale, so that's what's important. So please check that out whenever you can. But yeah, Godland, that's why it's number 3 on my list. So number 2, we have Anatomy of a Fall, which is directed by Justine Triet. So Anatomy of a Fall was a very pleasant surprise, obviously, this year. I went into this film only knowing of its existence maybe a week or two prior. And I was fucking blown away by this experience. This is essentially, it's a courtroom drama, but that does not do the film justice at all. Because yes, there is a lot of time spent in the courtroom, but the way that this film presents its ideas and the way that some of this film is structured and relays information is so compelling and so powerful. Essentially, this is a film about a mother that is being accused of murdering her husband. And the way that the film keeps information from us and slowly but surely reveals it as the film progresses is absolutely brilliant. Just really makes for a rewarding and engaging and powerful experience when watching it. And even the way that it chooses to reveal vital information, or even sometimes not reveal it, is very, very compelling. There's this one scene in particular that happens in the courtroom where a piece of evidence is presented, and it cuts back to a flashback of showing us in context of where this evidence took place and where it came from. And again, the way that it presents that, and then again the way that it just decides to withhold certain things from us, just in that sequence alone, resembles why this film is fantastic, and resembles why I feel like this film deserves so much recognition. I hope the Academy recognizes this film. France, for some reason, did not put this film as their... they did not submit this film for Best Foreign Language Film from France. Don't fucking really know why they chose to do that. But anyway, definitely hope it gets the recognition it deserves. Performances all around are great. Insanely great child performance in this film. It's a child that has to essentially play a visually impaired person, and he is fantastic in this film. Absolutely fantastic. Really, I mean, every character in this film really has to bring it with their emotional despair. This film is filled with so much internal conflict and internal emotional struggles, and these characters all have the difficult role of conveying that emotion. And again, they all did an excellent job at playing their characters, which again was incredibly difficult in my opinion. So yeah, all around, love the way that this film is presented. Love all the acting across the board. And thematically and emotionally and narratively speaking, like, it's just all very compelling and creatively done. So yeah, Anatomy of a Fall, that is why it is number 2 on my list. Alright everyone, it's about that time where I reveal my number 1 favorite film of 2023. Feel like it's going to be met with a bit of a mixed reaction because the film itself got a bit of a mixed reaction, and that film is Beau is Afraid, which is written and directed by no other than Ari Aster. Beau is Afraid is a film that is so hard to describe, and it's, in so many ways, it feels indescribable. But the best way I can put it was that this was by far the most unique and bizarre and monstrously creative film that I've seen not only this year, but I just feel like ever. Beau is Afraid is just a grand slam of a film when it comes to constant use of absurd and bizarre situations that are, in one way, utterly comedic and hilarious, and then in another way is quite thought-provoking and unsettling and just so overall mind-blowing. I thought this film was fucking mind-blowing. Just super impressed with Ari Aster's ability to constantly be unpredictable and constantly be unique and creative. This film just throws so much shit at you. Just all these kinds of different scenarios, all these kinds of different absurd situations. Just presents whole ass sequences. Like, there's the stage play sequence, which I actually did a scene analysis for if you want to check that out. But the stage play sequence alone in this film is just like, it is so hypnotic, so mesmerizing, and again, just some of the most brilliantly crafted pieces of artwork that, again, I've seen all year and just in general, period. When it comes to a lot of the young new filmmakers that have come through the A24 distributions like Robert Eggers and the Safdie brothers and whatnot, I am the one that will always be the Ari Aster standing compared to the other two. And that's tough because they're all fantastic, but I am just an Ari Aster fanboy. Like, I just think for some reason his films and his creative style and the way that he is able to present ideas just for some reason resonate with me so much. And Beau Was Afraid is I feel like this is Ari Aster's magnum opus. I love that A24 totally gave him complete freedom to do whatever the fuck he wanted. They didn't care. Like, they knew this film wasn't going to make profit, and they were still like, yeah, fuck it, man. Just do it. And there's not a lot of moments in time, especially nowadays, but we're going to get moments like this where filmmakers like Ari Aster are just given 100% complete freedom, especially with, he's only in his third full-length film in, and especially with how fucking bizarre and inaccessible a lot of the shit in this film is, which is why I think it was met with a divisive reaction. But it's just one of the most insane movies I've ever seen, but it's so entertaining. It's a long movie too. It's like 3 hours and some change. Yet I never feel bored by this movie. I am constantly locked in, constantly engaged, constantly entertained, and just really love the experience of this. I just think it's an experience unlike any other. And again, I loved a lot of the thematic conveyances in this film. The big one obviously having to do with feeling guilty about shit that unfortunately you really shouldn't be feeling guilty about. And obviously that is coming from an abusive mother, an abusive childhood experience because of the parents surrounding you. Specifically in this film, as I mentioned, it's the mother figure. And again, it's just the way that all of that is portrayed and conveyed is absurd and just fucking bonkers and out there. But yet I just couldn't get enough of it and loved every fucking second of what this film offered. It is something else. And I always I recommend this film to everybody. Like, I don't care if they don't like it. I just fucking watch it. Whenever you have time, just watch this movie, because at the end of the day, you can never say that you walked out of the film. Yeah, you can't walk out of it saying, yeah, I've seen a film like that. Never. Impossible. And it's just, I don't know. I love this film to death. I've talked enough about it. I'll have a review for it. But yeah, this film's just fucking amazing. This film blew me away. And this film I'm going to watch all the time. I'm definitely going to be watching this film multiple times a year for the rest of my life. And it's actually my favorite Ari Aster film. And that's crazy because I am in love with Hereditary, in love with Midsommar, but somehow Beau Was Afraid has topped that. And I can't wait to see Ari Aster's new film, which is some weird Western noir thing, I think. And it's going to have Joaquin Phoenix and a bunch of other awesome actors and actresses in it. Really, really looking forward to that as well. But yeah, that's about it. That's my list. I hope everybody enjoyed what I had to say about the films that I saw this year. Last year, I should say. And I apologize if I didn't get to watch all the films that you would have hoped. Obviously, there's some films that I missed. Hopefully I'll get to those films in due time. But this is what I had to say about the films that I watched this year. Hope everybody enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about these films and you really enjoyed this list overall, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.